If you've been intrigued by what you've been seeing on this channel and are considering moving to Saipan, if you'd like a sunnier, simpler, slower lifestyle while still being part of the US, then start with the Saipan Living Relocation Guide, an A to Z reference of everything you'll need to adjust to life here on Saipan, Tinian, or Rota. Order here on YouTube, on Amazon, or at saipanliving.com. Then consider a phone or Zoom consultation where you can ask any question at all to plan your move to Saipan. Then when you're ready to take the leap, you can sign up for a reconnaissance tour before you move, or a relocation tour. Visit different neighborhoods, see what life is like, get your paperwork in order, your PO box, your ID, so you can hit the ground running. As a bonus, if you sign up for any tour or consultation, you'll get a copy of the Fast Track Kit that has all the forms and documents and applications you need to start your residency. My name is Walt Goodridge. Let's make your move to Saipan simple, fast, and stress-free. Hello everyone. Hi, my name is Walt Goodridge, the Jamaican on Saipan, and welcome to Live from Saipan. And my job today is to answer your questions about life here on Saipan. But before I get started, YouTube has a new feature. It's called the hype button. And once a new video is released, the hype button, an option, a clickable button, appears on your mobile device that allows you to hype the video. I'm not sure if it's available for live streams, but on any of the other long form videos I release, there should be a hype button if you are using your mobile phone and if you are signed into YouTube and Google with your personal account. And the hype button essentially allows YouTube to know that you believe that this content is worthy of being disseminated to more people. So it pushes the videos to increasing numbers of people and helps the channel grow. So if you see a hype button, please click that. It costs nothing to do and it will help the channel grow. Now, this live stream works better if you ask questions, and as I tell my tour clients, you can ask anything at all that you want. I cannot be embarrassed or offended, so ask any questions that come to mind about life here. It can be personal, it can be about religion, romance, personal relationships, anything at all that you like. And even if it's considered politically incorrect where you come from, you can ask it here. Now, some of the questions and answers I may not want to expose on a major forum like YouTube, but if you email me at walt@discoversaipan.com, or if you sign up for a consulting session, pre-relocation consulting session, I'll be sure to answer all of those questions. All right. Now, if you're watching this after the live stream, please feel free to add questions as well, because I am notified generally of all new questions and I compile them in anticipation of the next live stream. And someone did ask a question already on our stream. Where can we, Michael Dean asked, where can we send questions ahead of the live stream, or is it better just to wait? The best bet would be to email me at walt@discoversaipan.com, and that way I will get the questions directly. You could also post it to any video on the channel, and typically YouTube notifies me whenever there are comments, but as the channel grows, I've noticed that sometimes I'm not notified of all of the comments. So your best bet is the email. So welcome to the live stream, and let us continue. So someone brought up the issue of the casino here on Saipan, and I wanted to clarify something. So they asked, the person asked, I think it was a woman at the time, she asked when the new casino will be opening. And I was under the belief that she might have had her information incorrect, and that the Best Sunshine Casino, which is actually closed and never fully launched, is what she was referring to. But turns out that she was right. There is new activity with the casino here on Saipan. And if you do a search on the WashingtonPost.com website or on YouTube, on our Google in general, you'll find the latest article as of January of this year that talks about some of the history of the Best Sunshine Casino and what's likely to happen or what's desired to happen by certain parties who are connected to it. So, just to give you a little bit of background, for many years, the the community here on Saipan was not in favor of having a casino here on the island. The general consensus was that we wanted to keep the island family friendly. So whenever that issue would come up, the community would vote it down and say, no, we don't want a casino. Tinian, our sister island, does have a casino, and that was its claim to fame. So, and tourist dollars. So people believe that it would be better to have Tinian have the casino, and then Saipan could be more of a family-friendly destination. So the politicians did what often politicians are wont to do. They simply stopped asking the public, and a contract went out, I believe maybe 2015 or 16, and a company by the name of Imperial Pacific won the contract and started construction on a casino. And I'll spare you some of the details until you take a tour, but the casino was partially completed. The and had a soft opening at one location, and then had its grand opening at the current location. The hotel side of it was never completely finished, and it ran into some public resistance and some OSHA regulations. Um, uh, Problems, and as a result, the the anticipated and expected progress of the casino was sort of stymied. So it never fully launched, never fully got off the ground, and now it is in legal proceedings. It's being sued by workers, being sued by other stakeholders as well. So it's in limbo in legal limbo at the moment. But apparently, even though the building has not been used now for maybe 2 years or so, 2 or 3 years, it seems that the powers that be are in the process of um, the details, because I don't know all of the details. I don't want to get the channel in trouble, meaning by disseminating incorrect information. But apparently, there is a Japanese company that is interested or in the process of taking over the casino and relaunching. I'm not sure if there's a date set yet, but I just wanted to clarify that yes, if you keep up with the news, you'll find out that there is activity with the Best Sunshine Casino. And if you check out the local English speaking newspaper, the Marianas Variety, mvariety.com, you'll be able to find some of the current information. And again, feel free to ask any questions that you have. Let's just make sure everything is working here. All right, so that was a little update on the Best Sunshine Casino. So the two companies that you want to do a search for if you're interested in getting the details are Imperial Pacific, that's the parent company, and then Best Sunshine, that's the trade name on that they were doing business, Best Sunshine Casino. All right, now let's see. I will also place a link to an article that I found. It's business-humanrights.org, and there's a good article there that has a timeline in terms of when the project started, when the casino project started, and various milestones along the way, when they did the launch, when they were sued by the workers, that sort of thing. So I'll put that in the description. All right. Someone sent me an email. As you know, the reconstruction of runway Able on Tinian has begun, and I covered that in a previous video. I took a client out to a tour a few weeks ago and discovered that we could not drive the entire length of the runway because the construction has started. They're actually tearing up the runway as we speak, and little by little, the original pavement will no longer be there. So someone sent me an email. Russell sent an email. We are interested in your tour to Tinian for the World War II history, but I've just seen your video about Runway Able. Does this detract significantly from the tour? And the answer is no. I did a tour just last week, and every other site that we visited, the bomb pits, all the relics, the shrines, the House of Taga, that's a Chamorro site, a cultural site, the bomb assembly area, and everything else is still accessible. And the runways are still accessible, just partially. So we were able to drive on the runways. We were able to drive halfway on the runway, so it does not negatively affect the my Hiroshima to Tinian to Hiroshima tour on the island of Tinian. So if you are considering taking the tour, you should definitely still do so. And I'm not just saying that for my own um, benefit, but it is still a thorough tour. And as I said, at this point, everything else is still accessible on the island. All right. Okay. Inspire Light asks, is there an estimated time frame whatsoever for the reopening of the casino? I read an article this morning, and no, I did not see any projected date. But if I do find one, once this live stream is over, I will put a link to that in the description, so you'll be able to see it very shortly, immediately after we finish this live stream. But no date is set. Things like this, typically, it's quite unpredictable. Dates may be set, and then they won't be met because of things are held up in the Senate or the Congress or whoever, whichever department needs to do the approvals. So, but I will do my best to find a launch date for you. All right. Thanks for that question. Okay, next. All right. The question came up earlier in a previous live stream about hotspots. And I mentioned that I was using one company here on SAIPAN for my phone service. And with that phone service, I use a hotspot to access the internet on my laptop. So my cell phone has the hotspot feature turned on. And rather than paying for Wi-Fi in my apartment, I simply use the hotspot to get online. And I stopped using that company because I was informed at the time that they no longer supported that feature. And I forget exactly what happened, but I think I was running into difficulty using it for some reason. And when I inquired with the company, they said that feature is no longer supported. So I switched to the other competitor here on the island for my hotspot. But I've since called up again and found out that both companies do allow phones to be used as hotspots for uh, internet access. So I'm not sure exactly who, and the agent I spoke to was not aware of any time in the past when it was blocked. So that's really interesting. But I know for a fact it was, and if anyone who works at those companies can shed any light on that, that would be appreciated as well. But just to give you an update on that. Okay. And used cars. I did a video about getting used cars on Saipan, and typically what you'll notice here on the island is that folks who are selling their cars will typically simply park the cars on the side of the street, typically in front of churches for some reason, with for sale signs and contact information. And that's typically how many people find out about used cars for sale. You can also check Facebook. If you do a search on Facebook for Saipan Buy and Sell or Saipan Used Cars, you'll be able to avail that option as well. And then we do have at least one dealer here on the island. I haven't been down to San Antonio in a while, but I know there was one dealer selling used cars. Typically, people, I mean, it's a good idea in that people will have one location that they can go to buy a used car, but obviously the dealer is going to mark it up a little bit, so it's usually easier, as you know, to buy directly from an individual rather than a dealership. But dealerships do sell used cars at a bit of a premium, and there is one uh, dealer that is specializing just in used cars that I've seen here on the island. So that's a little update on that. Let's check your questions. Okay, what are a half dozen of the most beautiful qualities of the people of Saipan? Thanks a lot. Inspire Light asks, what are a half dozen of the most beautiful qualities of the people of Saipan? Okay, so first of all, the people of Saipan include indigenous folks. So you have the Chamorros, you have the Carolinians, and other Pacific Islanders from Chuuk and Yap and Pohnpei and Palau. And you also have uh, contract workers from Bangladesh, from China, from Thailand, from Korea, from Japan, from Philippines. So you get a mix of cultures, and you have mainland Americans who've relocated here as well. So let's say the six best qualities. The people here tend to be friendlier. All right, that's number one. So people in general tend to be friendlier. It's a smaller community. Most of the folks who are coming here for the mainland from the mainland, even though they are for many times looking to escape the mainland and the prevailing personality type there, they tend to be people who are more open-minded, world travelers, more tolerant. So they tend to be friendlier, and the community itself lends itself to that. It's a small community; you run into the same people frequently, so the people tend to be friendlier. They tend to be less confrontational. That's typically an Asian thing. There is a lot of generosity. And this is something interesting. The generosity here, I've noticed there are many reasons for it, but one of the reasons that I uh, chanced upon years ago, I was having a discussion with my cousin in New York. And we grew up in Jamaica together, and we happened to be talking about how life was different in Jamaica compared to in the States. Now, we were both in Queens. We lived in Queens. I lived in Hollis, and he lived in Queens Village. And even though we lived less than 3 miles away, we rarely saw each other on a regular basis. Whereas in Jamaica, when we were growing up, we lived in Kingston, one part of Kingston. He lived miles and miles away on the other side of Kingston, but we still saw each other more at my grandmother's house in Old Harbor, St. Catherine, on a more regular basis. So the family was tighter then, even though we were spread apart physically in a greater distance. And we thought about it for a while, discussed it, and we realized that one of the things that happens when folks from islands like Jamaica or from the Philippines or from Saipan move to the States is that things become a lot different, and the how you apportion your time becomes much different. And we realize that the in the States, you spend much more of your time working because, and this is an unusual connection and association that you may not have thought of, but everything that you have in your refrigerator in the States unless you're growing it in your own backyard, which many people do not do, everything that you have in your refrigerator, you had to buy. All right, and you may take that for granted. But here on a little island like this, on islands like Jamaica, you can have mangoes, you can have breadfruit, you can have all sorts of fruits and vegetables in your home, in your refrigerator, at your disposal that you did not have to buy because it's growing freely, freely in someone else's backyard. So people tend to be more generous because the food is more abundant. And so for you to have food in the States, because there are no mango trees growing wild out along the sidewalk, your time becomes much more valuable, meaning that you have to spend more time surviving in the States than you would here. Here, your neighbor can gift you with bags and bags of mangoes and breadfruit that they just picked off a tree or that they just stopped along the sidewalk and picked along. So people tend to be more generous, and you spend less of your time working than you or needing to work than you would in the States. So people tend, as I said, people tend to be more generous, and people tend to be a little more social, a little more available because of how things are set up. You do not see mango trees or any sorts of trees just allowed to grow wild in New York or in major cities. That would upset the space-time continuum and the balance of capitalism. So as a result of the more natural lifestyle that exists here, people then tend to be more, one, connected to the earth. They also tend to share in the abundance that exists as opposed to having to spend all their time and being more vigilant about their resources and their finances. So long explanation, but it is something that came up a while back that I wanted to share with you. Okay, so that's two. People tend to be more generous. They tend to be a little friendlier. What else can I tell you? Um, this is more about the lifestyle more than the people themselves, but things are structured in such a way here that life is just a little bit easier. And someone had asked a question in the previous live stream about the things that are most expensive that I found surprisingly expensive and things that I found surprisingly cheap. And I have to add to that that one of the things I found also appealing about life here on Saipan is how easy things are to get accomplished in certain regards. I'm sure not everything, but I needed to get my registration renewed, needed to get my car inspected uh, the other day. And I left my house at 10:51 a.m. And I documented this because I knew it would go quick. Then I wanted to be able to share this with you. Left my house at 10:51, and I went first and got the car inspected. Then I went to the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, to the cashier to pay for the registration. And then I went to the third office to submit the receipt for the renewal. I think it was $60 if I'm not mistaken, and wait for my renewal. And everything was done by, I left my house 10:51. By 11:15, everything was done. By 11:15, I had done the inspection. I had paid for the registration. I had submitted the form and gotten the registration back. It was computerized, so I got the registration back and continued with my day, had the entire day to do whatever else. That is something that would not have happened, just primarily just for the sheer size of the community in New York. If I went to the DMV on Jamaica Avenue in Hollis, in Jamaica, I would Jamaica, New York, that is, I would have spent hours there waiting online. I would have dealt with surly individuals who don't want to be there and don't want you to be there either. So just interacting with the people and the bureaucracy here is not as taxing on your stress levels as it might be in the States. Um, so that's number three, I think. Let's see if I can come up with six. Um, this one might be more for the guys here, and it might be more for those who travel to other countries, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. But in general, what I find on this side of the world is that people are less conflicted about their gender roles. Now, you may object to the fact of there being roles, but for the most part, we know, though the sane among us know that men are different from women, and that women are good in certain things, and men are good in certain things, and that men are attracted to women, and women are attracted to men. And there is no conflict about that. There is no debate about that. So, um, women appreciate being getting attention from men. This is what I found in China, in Singapore, in Cambodia, and Vietnam, and they are not rebelling against the fact that men and women are different. So what I found with the dating scene here on this side of the world is that I can give a young lady a compliment if I so choose, and she doesn't call the cops on me and say that I'm molesting her or abusing her or harassing. There'll be a giggle. This is what I liked about when I travel, and people appreciate it, and it makes the male-female interaction less combative and easier on this side of the world. And that's my experience. That's what I have found. So let's see. Half dozen of the most beautiful qualities of the people of Saipan. I mentioned the generosity, food serving that also manifests itself in the size of food, the servings of food here, friendliness. Generally, people tend to be just more pleasant overall, and that some of that is a stress level as well. So if I think of anything else, I will definitely add it. But that's a great question that I like, that I appreciate. Thanks for that. I'm thinking if anything else comes up, I'll interrupt it. Okay. John Hutchins asked, "Hi, can you give an update on the runways at Northfield? I hear they are ripping up everything." Yes, please do me a favor. Check out the videos on my channel. I have a playlist that's a World War II history playlist. I just did a video about a week ago about the update. I haven't had any specific updates in terms of the progress or completion dates, but yes, I can tell you that as of last week, I was there January 10th and 11th. I was on the runway on January 11th. Half of the runway able is still contains the original pavement from 1944-45, but the other half, the western half, has been uprooted. So there's debris on either side, but half of the runway able is still in its original condition. The other half is now being excavated. All right. I will get some specific information in terms of the progress of the contract itself, and if there is any anticipated completion date that has been put forth. But other than that, just do a search on the channel for the Tinian updates as of January 11th. All right. Thanks for that question. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay, high button casino update, used cars. I'm gonna add, okay, here's something that I also noticed. about the people here. Many of the mainlanders who live on Saipan, turns out that many of them are also world travelers. There's a unique connection between folks who have lived in Alaska and folks who've been here. We have many guys and girls who are merchant marines who are on the ships that are stationed, the pre-positioning ships that are stationed just off the coast of Saipan. So you get folks who are a bit more well traveled, and therefore, usually, you get folks who are more worldly, a little more aware of how things operate outside of the bubble of the US society. So you get folks who are, I wouldn't say easier to talk to, but a little more interesting to talk to because of their life experiences, should you decide to be a little gregarious and actually meet people. But yeah, you find some really interesting folks here living here who have lived in many other places, in addition to contract workers who have worked in Australia, who've worked in Dubai, who've worked all over on cruise ships. So you have a really interesting population of folks if you choose to interact with them. Now, what I've noticed, many of the mainlanders, they may not, they may, some of the mainlanders tend to keep their social circles a little tighter and only as, not only, but I mean, it's hard not to associate with the folks from other countries, but for the most part, their close circles will be other mainlanders. I tend to have friends who are um, from all over, whether it's Ghana, whether it's Bangladesh, whether it's the Philippines or China. Um, so the Pacific Islanders, I tend to want to take advantage of the fact that the diversity is here that one can take advantage of if one so chooses. Now, there are lots of folks who you may not have believe you have anything in common with, but that's one of the things I like about the island is just how the opportunity to interact and learn from people of different cultures. And someone, I did a tour the other day, and we were talking about dating, and as you do, and we were talking about folks who come to this side of the world and who prefer to date people who are similar to them, meaning they may tend to date among a pool of people who speak English. And you may take that for granted. You may say to yourself, "Of course, that makes sense." But I and others like me tend to gravitate towards the differences more than the similarities. And it's been said that typically you will find yourself more compatible with someone who is of a different, an opposite temperament. So if you tend to be an introvert, you may tend to be more compatible with someone who's an extrovert, but that you'll tend to be more similar and be more compatible with someone with whom you share certain values. So you people tend to gravitate towards folks who are different in temperament but similar in values. Whether that's true or not, I tend to gravitate to the differences. That's what appeals to me. So it's appealing to me to date someone who is Chinese, for example. So it's a total opposite in terms of the language, in terms of the culture, in terms of the experiences. So that to me is what's appealing about being on this side of the world, the differences. So I've often joked to my friends that when you're dealing with someone with whom you don't share the same language, it actually makes compatibility and tolerance much easier. if you, for example, if you date someone who is also an engineer who has an extensive vocabulary, you may find yourself mired in the weeds and discussing the nuance of whether she said blue versus whether she said azul, aqua, and so you tend to uh, get paralyzed in the minutia of the communication. Whereas if I'm dating someone who doesn't speak English as well and I don't speak Mandarin as well, then if a disagreement comes, you have an option. You can try to hash this out in pidgin English and pidgin Mandarin, or you can just say, okay, is this worth arguing about? Let's get cut to the chase. Am I still interested in being in this relationship? Yes, I am. Okay, let's move on. So I find that it helps me be more tolerant because you don't waste time arguing over the nuance and wallowing in the nuance of language. You get to the bottom line quicker, if that makes any sense. So that's my experience. Again, I'll add to that list. So that's one of the things I like about life here is the simplicity of it, not only in terms of the lifestyle itself, but in terms of how I engage with the people from a communication standpoint. All right, hope that makes sense. All right. Thank you so much for enumerating some of the beautiful qualities of the people of Saipan. So appealing. All right, good. And that's, Inspire One Light. That's my experience. There are people who will come here, and I know this for a fact, who will have a negative experience. And it's not, I must say this, it's not for everybody. Life on Saipan is not for everyone. Things are, because I grew up in Jamaica, maybe it makes me more tolerant of certain things. Um, I read an article just this morning about 7 qualities that people who grew up without air conditioning have that the younger generation does not have. And it's really interesting in the sense that if you grew up in a society where the minute you feel hot, you can turn on an air conditioning unit and get comfort, it shapes your personality in a certain way that makes you, in my opinion, and in the opinion of the author of this article, less able to deal with adversity in life. And he or she, I forget, makes a much better connection in it. But I'll give you certain examples. Growing up in Jamaica, we would often have brownouts and blackouts. And when the lights went out, you simply lit a candle and you continued your homework. I remember vividly doing my homework by candlelight. When it gets hot, as the author said in the article, you simply start fanning and you go out, sit outside, and you deal with it because this is what life is. This is what reality is. Things get hot, lights go out, storms come, and you deal with it and move on. Life continues. So it makes you more able to deal with certain adversity in general, in all aspects of life. And you realize that not that comfort is not guaranteed. You realize that you can still get things done if life throws curveballs at you. But a generation or a society that grows up being able to achieve instant gratification and not have to deal with adversity, even with something as simple as air conditioning, is ill equipped to deal with life's adversities in many different ways. And I'm sure you've seen this in many ways. People who the term these days is crash out. People who have crash outs when minor things don't go their way. So growing up in the lifestyle that I did in Jamaica without air conditioning allows me to, or built in me, I believe, certain tolerances for the negative parts of life, the parts where I don't get my way, the parts where things take a long time to to arrive, the things where you have to wait months and years in order to achieve a certain goal. So I bring that up to let you know that certain things about the lifestyle here, certain aspects about lifestyle here on Saipan, if you are too high maintenance, if you always want things available, if you can't abide the fact that your terror chips will run out and you'll have to wait till the next container terminal arrives, which could take weeks or months in order to have your terror chips and Larabars, then this may not be the place for you. If you get bent out of shape, if there's no air conditioning, if the electricity goes out, then this may not be the place for you. So I have to throw that in there that it's not for everybody. And these, what I'm giving you are my experiences and my take on reality. So there are certain things that I may not be mentioning simply because they're not on my radar. I may not be mentioning the fact that my Ezekiel bread is not available because it's sold out and the next container is coming next week. I remember I've mentioned this before. There was a young lady who came to live here, and little things started to frustrate her about the availability of certain items and the non-availability of certain specific products that she was used to stateside. So for her, it wasn't a good deal, and she ended up leaving for that and likely other reasons as well. But those didn't help. So very important, I think, for me to mention that it's not for everybody, and to keep that in mind as well. All right. So I want you to have realistic expectations when considering coming to Saipan. If you can, and if your lifestyle and finances allow it, if you can do a reconnaissance tour before committing, if you happen to be in the area and you want to pop into Saipan and check it out and see if you could live here before you make the full commitment, then that might be advisable. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, are there many studio or one bedroom apartments which have a little plot of earth for growing some veggies, or would that be a rarity? It depends on it wouldn't be a rarity. Um, there might be a situation where an apartment, I'm thinking of some now actually in Fina Sisu, where an apartment, small apartment, maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe 6 units, might also be surrounded by land, and you might be able to ask the landlord if you could use that. So it's not impossible because not everything here is paved over with concrete. So it is possible that an apartment building does have land surrounding it that might be available. So yes, I'm thinking of some others right now where I know for a fact that the landlady has a plot of land on the side. So I don't think that would be rare. I think it would actually be possible. Um, yes, absolutely. But if you decide, let's say in Garapan, if you decide to get a one-bedroom apartment in Garapan, for example, which is a concrete jungle, as it were, then that might be rarer. But in certain other areas, maybe in Cagman, maybe in San Antonio, maybe even in uh, let's see, Oleai. You can write those down or rewatch this. Those areas might have some small one-bedroom buildings, apartment buildings with one-bedroom apartments that might have land around on the side. Okay. All right. Next question. Rhythms and Retrogrades asks, what are the record temperature highs? Wow. Oh, I guess we've probably hit the 90s, maybe even 100. I don't keep track of the highs. What I can tell you is that we are actually in the Guinness Book of World Records, and I have a copy of it here, as being the world's most equable temperature, 79 to 89 all year round. So the variation seasonally is not that great. 79 to 89 all year round. Um, Highs, I know, let's say high 90s. Again, that's not a record, but I know for a fact that we've hit the 90s on several occasions. All right, hope that helps. Okay, what else can we talk about? There's a topic that I'm avoiding because I'm going to put that on my Walt Goodridge channel. So if you guys are interested in a topic that I'm putting off, subscribe to that channel, and if I get one more subscriber, I'll do a video on that. But it's a topic of how mainlanders are treated here in this part of the world. All right, having to do with perceived privilege. And again, it's something I did come up recently during a tour, but there are certain topics that I don't really get into much on the SAIPAN channel. So I'll save that for my Walt Goodridge channel. But if you're interested, do a search online. I do have a channel that I haven't been focusing on, the Walt Goodridge channel, which is um, reserved for certain things that might be a little political, certain things that are just philosophical, certain things that are just my random thoughts. So I'll uh, I'll invite you to check that out. Okay, so just a few minutes left. If you guys rhythms and retrogrades ask, nice, we can handle that in terms of the temperature. All right. It, being from the tropics, having been born and raised in Jamaica, that's something that's not an issue for me. Even in hot weather, I wear long sleeve shirts and long pants. So growing up with the island blood is something that makes me a little less susceptible to being stressed out by high temperatures. In fact, I like high temperatures because, or sunshine and heat, because that's how I was introduced to the world. So for me, that's when I feel most alive, is when the sun is shining on me and when I'm hot. Whereas for most of the time I ever spent living in New York, it never felt real to me. It never felt like this was living, because it's just not what I was used to. So hopefully you can, I have heard from folks that um, that it has taken a little time to get used to the heat, but after a while the body does acclimate to it. So if you're coming from a very cold climate, it might be something that you might have to adjust to. But glad that was helpful. Okay, any other questions, folks? We're going to wrap this up really shortly, unless you can offer any other questions. Okay, someone asked, NDD Bulldog asked, "Hello Walt, have you ridden the bus from one end from end to end before? I was wondering the time it takes for the blue line to make a full run." Okay, so for those who are not familiar, for many years we did not have public transportation on Saipan, but just in the last, I think, 2 or 3 years, the CNMI Transit has been launched, and now we have at least two lines: a blue line that runs all the way up and down Beach Road, the main thoroughfare on the island, runs from Garapan all the way down to the south to San Antonio, then turns around and comes back. And I believe there was also another line that runs up to the college, and you'd have to look on a map to determine where that is. But I have not actually taken the bus to determine how long it takes, but I can tell you maybe about half an hour to go from the south end of the island, picking up folks, stopping at the hotels, and making its way up to Garapan. So I'd say about half an hour total. All right, and it might vary depending on the traffic and the time of day. Rush hour here, our grand rush hour starts at about 4:30 or so, and then of course there's the school traffic. Sometimes, if you're taking the bus during school hours or when school is letting out, then the school buses may slow things down. But I'd say about half an hour. Well, it might take. Okay, what sources, Inspire One Lad asks, what sources of tofu are available? Are any commercial grade or is it all on the homegrown side made on Saipan? I'm interested in knowing about all types of organic foods available. Okay, thanks for that. Just to give you a little bit of context, I also am interested in organic and health food. I do happen to be vegan, no chicken, no fish, no beef, no pork, nothing in cans, no dairy, no milk, no pesticides if I can avoid it, no food coloring, no sugar, no coffee, no alcohol. That's my lifestyle. So I tend to buy everything locally as much as I can, but there are certain vegetables that I do buy that are coming in from the US or flown in from Korea or Japan. The tofu, you do have two options. Yes, there is locally made tofu. That's the one I typically purchase. And for a block, let's say, I guess it's about a pound of block. It's anywhere from maybe $1.99 to $2.25 for a block of white tofu. And there are at least two companies that make that locally. And you can also get the commercial ones that are in the tub that are flown in from the States. So that does exist. You can also get uh, tofu of various densities. So if you're familiar with toya or tofuka, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Mandarin, there are fried tofu and compressed tofu that's thicker. That when you bite into it, it actually has some substance to it, unlike the block tofu. So those you can get. We for many years and still do have a Chinese community here that does buy mung bean sprouts and toya and tofuka and when I do the video for the standalone video for this, I'll put photos for you to check it out. But yes, you can get various types of tofu here locally, as well as the commercial brands, the packaged brands that are sold in supermarkets. All right. What I have found in terms of getting organic food is that for the most part, the farmers here are not there are farmers who are not using pesticides, and you won't find any pesticides in the fruits generally, mangoes, things like breadfruit. You won't find the plums. You won't find pesticides there. Where you might have to worry is when it comes to the greens. So the amaranth greens, perhaps, and some of the other um, Filipino favored greens, depending on who is growing them, you might run into pesticides. But I was fortunate enough to have a relationship with the friendly relationship with some of the farmers, and I've asked them if they use pesticides, and I've gotten what I believe to be truthful answers, in that they don't for various reasons. But some of them do use pesticides at the early stages of the plant, but then not at the later stage. So the pesticides might, it's not, I don't think it will be a deal breaker, but there are certain clues to determining whether pesticides or some sort of chemicals were used. And if the greens tend to be very shiny and perfect without any sort of weevil and bug holes in them, then that might indicate that that pesticides have been overused. But my point was that to get organic food in the supermarket is a little tricky. And years ago, I requested of the major supermarket here if they could stock organic fruits and vegetables, and they did. There were carrots, there was broccoli, and other items as well that ended up not selling. because the cheaper non-organic options were there, so people just didn't see the point in spending extra. The average consumer didn't see the point in spending extra for the organic food, so therefore they ended up spoiling, and it just was not cost effective for the stores to carry organic. So unless and until there is a large enough demand, consistent demand, and that's a challenge that we had, is that the few of us who were willing to pay extra for the organic food were not enough in number to warrant it and justify it profit-wise for the major stores. So getting certified organic fruits and vegetables in the supermarkets is an issue, but it is possible to get near organic food if you're vigilant and if you know what to look for, in my opinion. By near organic, I mean it's not certified organic, but it has very little pesticide use during the growing process. All right, but again, for me, I weigh the pros and cons. Yes, I do my best to eat as cleanly as possible, but if they're not available, then to me that's not a deal breaker. I'll survive on the foods that I know to be cleaner that I can get locally. That's my take. All right. Thank you, Julian, for subscribing to my other channel. I appreciate that. You can feel free to spread the love, go to all the other channels and subscribe. But I will be doing a video really soon. In fact, I might film it right after this, where I talk about uh, privilege here in Asia. All right, so that you might find that interesting, my take on that. So thanks for that. And because of you, I shall now do that video. If for no one else, you will be the one I do it for. Okay. Uh, okay. All right. So, yep, I will be wrapping it up now. It is only 5 minutes to go. Thanks a lot. Um, Inspire Light. And final question, Julian said, I was planning to petition Elon Musk to build a water cleaner plant. What do you think about that? A water cleaner plant on Saipan, you mean? Sure, go for it. See what happens. Um, you can send me more information if you'd like. Let's see, water purity. Oh, since you brought up the water, I just thought I'd mention when you do, if and when you do come here to Saipan, please be aware not to drink the tap water. All right, the water table here on Saipan is high, and the water tends to be brackish, and everyone here uses bottled or spring water, so no one drinks the tap water. You can use it for washing your clothes, you can use it for laundry and bathing, but not for drinking. So most people tend to subscribe to the 5-gallon water bottles. All right. So with that said, we're going to wrap it up. Really appreciate all your participation. Feel free to leave a super chat. We are getting really close to being monetized and hitting that 4,000 watch time hours. So that'll be really helpful for you guys to watch some of the longer videos. I do have a video called the Saipan Sea Sounds by the Seashore. That's about 8 hours long. If you want and you have nothing else to do, you can turn that on and just let it run. And if you're a member, feel free to support the efforts, the non-monetized efforts, by subscribing and joining, becoming a member. That'll be really appreciated. And I will see you guys in the next video and the next live stream. Thanks for watching. This is Walt Goodridge, the Jamaican on Saipan, signing off.